Hi there, Eve here with my brother Sean.
Hello everyone.
A real live actual normal eater here to join me in having some ice cream.
Pizookie. Number one.
Pizookie, that's right. It's like a pizza cookie with a few scoops of ice cream. So before we get started, let's say some intentions. My intention of enjoying this with you is to enjoy the cookie and ice cream, enjoy the time with my brother. I don't care if my lipstick stays intact, whatever, and to have a good time with you. So thank you for being here.
And my intention is obviously to hang out and chill with my sister, but also to satisfy my taste buds with this delicious dessert.
Great. So let's dig in. So the reason why I'm doing this topic is actually because it came as a request from a few people in the community. Oh, this is really good. It smells so good in here. It smells like chocolate chip cookies. So trigger warning, sorry if I didn't say so earlier, but we're gonna be eating a chocolate chip cookie with some vanilla ice cream. So I wanna talk for a minute of why it could be so hard for some people to include what I like to call charged foods. For some people, certain types of food have an emotional charge or have an emotional pull. And the reason why this could be an issue for a lot of people is because it could feel like inside, once you have the food, like a switch has been flipped. I'm gonna double dip here. A switch has been flipped, and now that you've had it, all bets are off, and now that you've had it, you're allowed to have everything. Kind of like that all or nothing eating could happen. Also, many of us have told ourselves that we can't be trusted with these foods, unfortunately. And there are even some programs out there or some specialists out there who actively teach people that they cannot be trusted with foods. And finally, another reason why people may struggle with including these types of charged foods is because they may have a fear of weight gain. So sometimes it's a body image issue.
Hey buddy. Hi.
Clearly, my brother loves his body. So I think he's a great example of what we're talking about here. Or I guess a good example of the opposite of what we're talking about here. So let's talk about why this is an issue. Why is it an issue when people don't fully integrate all types of foods into their intake? Is they never really heal this aspect of their eating. We live in a world where charged foods are part of the landscape. So, if it's not dealt with and healed, it could always be an issue. The food always stays charged, and the food may always have a pull on you or whoever's struggling, right? So you could be at home, and even though you're at home sitting on the couch, the ice cream from the freezer might be calling you. Or even if you're at home and you're doing something not even related to food, that or at a party, let's say, you're instead of enjoying the company, there's fixation on the food that's there. And finally, it's a problem when these foods aren't finally integrated in one form or another, because one may be more likely to actually binge once a little bit is consumed, because they tell themselves, oh no, now that I messed up, I might as well keep on going. So the benefit to ultimately addressing this, the reason why it's so important to heal this aspect of eating, is that we want to be free and at ease in this world of food. We want to, as part of healing, it's about saying yes and no to food in a way that honors you, all of you. And the best way to do that is make food choices from the inside out instead of the outside in, self-imposed rules. You want to learn how to access your own body's wisdom. How's it going so far?
Amazing.
Oh, I'm glad. It came out really good.
Everything I could have hoped for.
Yeah, so taking a moment to check in and as we eat this, because it really is delicious. I'm gonna take a moment to enjoy. Hold on, I'm not going to talk for a second. So I think it's also important to acknowledge part of healthy eating, so-called healthy eating, is not just what you're eating. It's also about how you're relating to food as well. And I don't see a lot of people out there talking about this. And I feel like this is important because You might know somebody who has the so-called perfect diet or is eating all the right things. But if they freak out at the sight of a potato chip, or if they freak out at the sight of a donut, there's an issue. And there's certainly people out there who avoid situations where certain foods are around. So, and another reason to address this part of healing your relationship with food is some of these foods are just downright delicious, you know?
That's the best part, the taste buds, the satisfaction.
Exactly. So, I want you to know, ultimately making peace with these foods doesn't come from avoiding them. It actually comes from learning how to have these foods in a way that works from you. So taking away the charge is not gonna ever come from having this rigidity with these foods. It's learning how to eat them in a way that honors you. And that's what I'm gonna talk about in the rest of this video. How you doing there, Sean?
Chilling.
Great.
Fantastic.
So, a very helpful guideline on knowing whether or not to include one of these foods is to actually be craving it. Craving it is very different than eating it just because it's there. Craving is very different than eating because it's a special occasion or because somebody offered it to you. That's definitely a reason to have these foods. But if you're ever wondering whether or not to have a food, that's a nice thing to consult yourself is, am I truly craving it? The next thing, when doing this, you know, it's kind of like an exposure therapy to trigger foods. And actually this is a part of treatment for people who struggle with these eating issues, is to have this type of exposure therapy. Is when you're having the food to truly give yourself permission to focus on the food, to truly enjoy it. And as you're enjoying it, you want to tune in. How does it taste? Is it as good as you imagine? And that is not a trick question, because sometimes when you're eating, you might see that, wow, this actually tastes really good. And other times you might realize that it might not be about the taste at all. It may be about an emotion, or it might be about what you thought it tastes like. So giving yourself permission to enjoy the food is really helpful.
For me, with a dessert like this, you know, permission is not really required. I just have at it.
The next thing, once you finish the food, is by tuning into how did that food make you feel. Always, this is an ongoing helpful suggestion, is when you're having your meals or when you're having your snacks or even desserts like this, to tune into how did it make your body feel. Was it something that was energizing? Did it leave you neutral? Or was there a level of discomfort? So it's also quantity specific, because depending on the amount, you know, having like a little square of cheese, let's say, may affect your body very differently than an entire cheese platter, right? So, or a small side of French fries might affect your body differently than having, you know, the whole, you know, a bottomless bowl of French fries, obviously. So tuning into your body is a helpful thing for you to do to assess how did that food make you feel.
And in moments like this where I'm eating, you know, my favorite dessert, I tend to give myself permission to feel, you know, a little gross, but indulgent in the experience, and I roll with it.
Thanks for saying that, Sean. I think that's really important too, because sometimes you might make the choice to go ahead and feel a little gross if you want to just go ahead and enjoy something that you want. It's a choice, and that's what I love about this concept. Now, I want to talk a little bit about when not to do this experiment, especially if this is something you're new to. You don't want to do this experiment if you're too hungry, because if you're too hungry, you may just get caught up in the momentum of eating and maybe eat past the point of fullness, or eat too much, or not have that wherewithal or that focus to do this in a mindful way. Also, when you do this experiment, it's helpful not to be too angry. Angry is an emotion that carries a lot of energy with it that needs to be moved through the body. So if you're angry and you're using chewing as a way to process, it's going to take a lot of chewing to process that. Also, I don't recommend doing this experiment if you're feeling too lonely, because oftentimes the feeling of loneliness actually feels empty. And if you're feeling emotionally empty and you're using a food to try to fill you, there's no end to how much food that could take. Because when you're trying to fill this tank with food, it won't fill it. I hope that made sense. And also, you don't want to do this experiment. I wouldn't recommend doing this experiment if you're too tired, because when you're tired, you may not have the focus or the awareness that's really helpful, or if you're too stressed. So, and finally, the last thing I want to say is when you do this experiment, is to do it as lovingly and as safe as you can. And that is done by having some helpful boundaries for yourself. And some boundaries can include things like, the environment that you're in. Maybe being in a relaxed environment could help it be more conducive to you being mindful with the food. For some people, who they're having the food with, maybe having it with somebody that you feel comfortable with. And some of you, maybe doing this experiment is thus done alone when the kids aren't around, so you could actually focus on what you're enjoying, And also another thing when you're thinking about doing this in a way that is safe and honors you is the amount. Serve yourself an amount that feels safe. So for some people, having a big amount like this may not feel safe, and I totally honor that. So going out to have the food or getting just one portion might be some things you could do to honor that boundary. I think it's really important to honor where you are. And I remember when I was learning how to reintroduce ice cream, that's something I did. Actually, I found a 24-hour place that had ice cream anytime. It was a 7-Eleven, and the guy knew me there because I would go whenever I wanted some, but it was really helpful that it came pre-portioned, so I didn't have to worry about accidentally having too much. So that could be something that really supports the nervous system when you're doing this exercise. And so it could also be helpful to have a journal nearby if that is helpful for you, or have a friend that you could call, or do something, an activity afterwards to change the energy, to change your thoughts and focus. So Sean wants to share a little bit about what he does that helps him feel at ease.
I mean, typically when I'm not partaking in the ritual of eating a Pizookie, I'll my week-to-week shopping, I might just buy, a little bar of chocolate from Trader Joe's. I particularly like the speculoos cookie butter chocolate, and I'll have that in my fridge, and I'll eat, a bite of chocolate every night after dinner or something, and kind of give myself that satisfaction.
I'm just really enjoying this, so I don't want to talk. And no, I'm not sponsored by Trader Joe's, and neither is he. But I know a lot of I bring up Trader Joe's a lot. So thank you for saying that, Sean, because it's really important that when you do this exercise, that you do it in a way that supports you. And some people make the mistake of making their home or their work environment too triggering, or with too much charged foods, and such to the point that they're not feeling relaxed when they're at home. And I really don't recommend that, because that could be a trigger in and of itself. And so finally, before we log off here, I just want to take a moment to talk about people who are out there who feel like this is just too scary, that they're just not at a place where they're ready to introduce these foods. And the way I like to tell people is to really trust that. I don't really believe in violating yourself or freaking yourself out, or having taking such a scary leap. And if that's you, I want you to know that's okay. Good for you for being here, for watching my videos, because you know what my videos are about. So I feel like that's a wonderful step. And if you feel like you're willing, perhaps you could start thinking about what foods you would want to try, what foods that might feel safe for you to start including. And maybe you could even put them in a hierarchy from scariest to least scariest, and maybe start down here, so you could slowly and gradually bring yourself up to scarier things. So I hope this video was helpful, and I just want to end by saying, I might end saying more than one thing. I just want to end by saying, most importantly, do what's right for you. That's why I invited Sean here. The way he does his food isn't the right way. The way I do it isn't the right way. There is no such thing as the right way to eat. It's important for you to start learning your way of eating. So I just want to end with that message. And if Sean has anything he wants to say before we say bye.
Delicious. Mwah.
So thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Bye.